and I am a teacher by profession. I'm a maths teacher, and I've been a teacher trainer. So, what the rural area kind of a schooling looks like as compared to a township, a sort of a kind of a place learning, as well as the public school as compared to the private. There's another school loophole that I needed to figure out, which is the textbooks that we use every day to say what is actually going on. Is it the curriculum not interpreted properly, or is something else broken? So I actually had moved from the teaching part of it, and I went and became a publisher.
Today, I've got Thandi with me, Thandi Kgosana. Thandi, would you like to basically just introduce yourself first from the perspective? I've got a few questions that I sent you that you've sent me answers, and I want to go through them one by one. But maybe just a more generic background of where you stand in education, why you agreed, for this podcast about AI in education, and then we can start digging into the nitty-gritties and the nuts and the bolts.
All right. Thank you so much, Gary, for inviting me to the podcast. I feel like I'm honored, literally, to be here. So, yes, as you said, my name is Thandi Kgosana, and I am a teacher by profession. I'm a maths teacher who have been teaching for over 14 years now, if I count my years of teaching. And I've been in a classroom in a rural area. I've been in a classroom in a private and public schools, and I've been a teacher trainer. So over and above me just being a teacher, I've taught in a private schools and in a public schools. So I'm in the space where I'm able to gauge what the rural area kind of a schooling looks like as compared to a township, a sort of a kind of a place learning, as well as the public school as compared to the private school, because I have been in both areas, and where I was teaching maths, privileged enough to be teaching maths in all these scenarios. Then after that, I moved and become a teacher trainer, which is the facilitator for both maths and physical sciences, where I also have realized another part or another loophole, a gap that also the teachers are struggling to understand the concept, or to make learners understand the concept of the mathematics at large. So the language itself is broken one way or another. And while I was still there, I felt like there's another loophole that I needed to figure out, which is the textbooks that we use every day to say what is actually going on. Is it the curriculum not interpreted properly, or is something else broken? So I actually had moved from the teaching part of it, and I went and became a publisher, where I see the processes of how the book is created, and what is entailed inside the book, and what is the department looking at, and all those kind of things, which is quite interesting, because I always take myself as a teacher on another end. So I always say I'm teaching, but I'm teaching from the other background. So in a nutshell, in terms of my career, that is the guide, a space where I am a teacher, and I do believe that teaching is everything that has put me where I am today. Yeah,
Okay.
that is my qualification, my experience in terms of being a teacher. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to make a small comment and then come back to the real point I want to make. On this podcast, I try to address the general theme of AI in education from the perspective of whether AI can ever be a learning support tool. Literally, can it support learning? Because we know that AI can support the teacher in admin work. I think that speaks for itself. But can AI really be an educator? So that's a general theme of the podcast. However, I myself am a mathematics tutor, and I love your enthusiasm about mathematics. So we have to be careful that we don't scare potential viewers away by going so deep into the abstract mathematics that nobody wants to view the
Of
video.
course.
Yes. So you and I will have to just keep each other reined
Pull
in,
each other
So
back. Of
yeah, yeah.
course, yeah, I
Otherwise, we
understand.
how mathematicians are. We'll start going into calculus and trigonometry and everything, and the people will go, oh,
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, but what I actually want to ask you, in terms of your experience with the textbooks, um, I have been involved in, not very involved as much as you are, but I have been involved in textbooks over the last 20 odd years. And what I have found is that, and speaking specifically about mathematics, I haven't really looked at the science textbooks, but the mathematics textbooks, they tend to overemphasize providing exercises. There's like this little bit of explanation if you're lucky, maybe an example if you're really lucky, and then 2 pages worth of exercises. How do you address that? Because obviously the student
Agree.
needs some kind of a guidance or some kind of a teaching moment if they missed something in class. And from where I'm sitting as a non-publisher, it just seems like most of the modern textbooks miss that portion. I grew up, or when I matriculated, there was a textbook called Classroom Mathematics by Paul Laradin. And that was such a good book. I still use it today. I still got all the Laradin textbooks on my bookshelf. But I don't know if I'm just missing something in the intent of the textbooks, or if it's something that is a problem that you are addressing. And then I would like to hear, how do you address that from a publishing point of view?
Yeah. I think for me, from a teacher point of view, where all started, even when I was still a teacher, and that's the knowledge that I'm bringing where I am now, where I always say that there's no way that learners can understand how things are done without them knowing how they are not done. So I always go to the notion of say, what is it and what is not, right? So what is it that they have to learn and what it is not that they have to learn? So for me, in every context of what I do, it's either I create or I'm teaching. I always want to start with the basic of introduction, and I find a way to introduce it the way that the learners can understand, the way that learners can research, they can relate. And with this being said, is because perhaps it's because I've went through many other small bit and pieces of training, and as well as many other bit and pieces of research, that I've understood that there's no way that the learner can understand a question and answering without them understanding where they are coming from and how are they relating with their lives initially, because it has to be relatable for them to be able to apply. So they shouldn't always see maths as something, or a subject as something that is detached from their everyday life. They need to see it as attached. And I remember attending one of the courses during my teaching time, where we were taught how to then teach using games, right? So you gamify instead of just rushing and go and start saying Euclidean geometry, voila, let's go. So we were taught that you can actually create a game, for example, like the games that there's a game called Murabaraba. I think there's one that they put things. It's more like they put stones inside the holes and then they play around it like that. So it's more like they are counting, they are calculating many things is happening during that time. So if you play a kind of a game with them, it actually pull them back to, oh, this game I was playing, it helps me to remember that a circle is actually like this and this is how it's done. So I'm playing, but when I'm playing, I'm literally calculating the distance between the center and the circumference as I'm taking the stones in and taking the stones out. So those is the things that I have used most of the time during my teaching. To that, I'll actually just unpack and understand the curriculum myself, make sure that caps is not left behind with whatever I want to say or whatever I want to
Hmm.
do. Because literally most of the textbook that I use then use the ATP kind of model, like summarized way of like, okay, this is what things are done, let's go, let's run. And most teachers had adapted a question paper answer system, where they just give learners a question paper and they drill them to understand how to answer the question, instead of making them understand how other question can be asked using the same structure. Because for me, you give a learner one question, that learner should be able to create more questions out of it, but they can only do that if they understand the concept behind the question. So
Yeah,
I
no.
do believe that with our theme today, that AI might be the solution to help us as well to get that basics done properly, or that explanation that is left behind, to make sure that it's aligned and learners understand what they have to do. Yes, now you're back
Okay,
here.
there you're
I'm
back.
not sure if
Yes,
it was
yes. Okay, so did you hear that last question of mine? I don't know exactly which point you went away.
No, I did not hear. I did not hear. Please repeat.
Okay, I was just basically asking, um, is there a real problem then for paper-based resources? When you give a book, for instance, to a learner, is there an inherent
I lost you
lack?
again. I'm not.
Are you
Yes,
back?
now you are
Uh,
green.
Tell me, did you manage to look at any of the videos on the YouTube channel yet?
Yes, I did look at the videos that you have shared on the site. So I did went to the website and then check the videos that you have done on the YouTube channel.
Okay, so did you see the one I had with Zakele Kulu last week, Monday, episode 2?
No, the last week Monday one I didn't see. I saw two. Last
Hmm.
week Monday one I did not see it. You want
Yeah, no,
to?
it was actually recorded last week, Monday. I think I only published it yesterday morning. No, the reason I'm asking
Oh
is just
yeah.
simply because Zakele is up in northern KZN, and the signal there is so bad that we actually had to stop and he had to go and find a place where the signal is better, and then we carried on the conversation from there, because of the bad signal. And he was very embarrassed about it. And I said to him, you know what? Don't be. This is the reality that we face. And what I did was I actually took 25 seconds of all those interrupted moments and I shared it with the viewer to say, you know what, this is the type of situation, the practical reality of what we are sitting with. So if you haven't looked at that video, you can just watch the first couple of minutes just to see that, how we just overcome that. I edit the things out and then we just carry on the conversation.
Yeah.
It really is fine. Like I said, I'll edit everything out, and if we have to stop and start over, I'll just edit it in one continuous motion. So not
All
to worry
right.
about that. What I'm asking is, when we look at paper-based resources like textbooks or notes, that is given to kids, because we know that a lot of times they are given past papers, in paper form. Go and do this. Is there, in your opinion, then a need, let's call it a need, to address more explanation on paper? Or do we need to find an alternative? Because you mentioned AI. Do we need to find an alternative to provide the explanation because of everything that is involved in understanding the different types of questions?
I do believe that an alternative will help, but also the alternative can help with an experience or the knowledge of the teacher, because whatever that we do, we would never replace a teacher. We do
Yes.
still need a teacher that have a full content knowledge and understanding of pedagogy of how they need to deliver the content. So even though we come up with we say, for example, we will record the videos that the teacher can start by showing before paper based, but then the teacher also need to understand that there's some things that they have to intervene and solve it themselves. And I'm giving this is as a practical kind of an example. I was
Mm.
in one of the teacher trainer spaces that I had went last month, I think. So when I was there, busy with the teachers, there was a question in geometry where it was needing them to give a reasoning like with parallel lines. So the teacher was saying that according to the so the teacher was actually saying that this line is parallel to this line, corresponding angles, and they kept quiet. Then the other teacher was saying, nobody must say corresponding angles are equal, and you also have to indicate the lines that
Parallel lines.
are parallel. There was a bit of a debate there, but then now all the teachers were like, no, not even sure if that's how it should be. And because there's the paper base of all the acceptable reasonings, where
Mm.
then in some cases the equal sign was not written, and that is now misleading the teacher who believes that there's supposed to be an equal sign. And this time the teacher is saying that, okay, then that means even if there's no equal sign, it's not gonna there's no problem. And that's why I interjected and I say, but during my marking time, that is important, because a learner, I remember there's one learner who was almost getting 100%, but they couldn't get 100% because of leaving the equal sign out of the alternative and alternate angles being equal. So the word equal or the equal sign is required, right? So we still need a strong content and a pedagogical point of view from the teacher. So we
Mm.
can provide AI, we can give videos, we can give summaries, we can do everything possible. But the key element is that the teacher had to be trained enough to do what they have to do.
Yeah, no, no, I totally agree with you, and we'll get back to this point a bit later. But just to tell you, the conversations that I've had so far on this podcast has zoomed in on one very, very important point of AI in education, and that is namely that without pedagogy, this thing is lost. You can't implement AI without the teachers being involved. It's as simple as that.
Yes, it's
Because
as simple as that.
yeah, but we'll come back to that. I want to go to some of the questions that I sent you beforehand and your answers on them, then gradually move towards the AI solution. I
Right.
asked you what part of your work gives you the deepest sense of purpose or passion right now, and you said, and this is so 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 good. I love this. You said what gives me the most purpose is seeing learners who were afraid of mathematics begin to understand it. In South Africa, many learners develop anxiety around mathematics very early, and by high school, they already believe the subject is not for them. Let's talk about that. Is there some kind of person out in the world, not just school learners, anybody? Is there anybody out there that cannot do mathematics? Is that a
In
correct
my
statement?
in in my belief, no, everyone
Yes.
can do maths. And
Everyone
I
can do
think I
maths.
said I said this in 2019 when I was elected to be the national teachers in the National Teachers Award elections there. In my statement where I've written there in my article, I did say that everyone can do maths. It's just that what we have been told and we have believed into, it hinders us to understand maths. Either way, we are doing maths every day. I
Mm.
mean, for the fact that when I speak, I don't just so that you can hear me. I calculate my words so that you can
Yes.
hear what I'm trying to say. And that is maths. So literally everyone can do maths. It's just that the belief that we put in ourselves and what the world have already indoctrinated in our mind to think that maths is difficult, maths is hard, people were born for maths, and all those other myths that people are talking about hinder many people to say, "Hi, maths is not for me," and they are still saying it today. But I 100% believe that everyone can do maths.
Okay, so I'm going to give you two statements, and I want you to say yes or no, on those two statements, whether you agree or disagree. Um,
All right.
the one is that some people are naturally inclined to be good at playing musical instruments. Other people like myself, I cannot play a musical instrument even if I tried. And other people go sit in front of the piano and they just come up with a tune. But is it something that I can never do? No, I just won't ever be a Mozart or a Beethoven. And then the same goes for mathematics. Some people are naturally inclined to understand it better and get their 90s and their 95s and the 100%. But I agree, and this is the one point I want you to comment on. I agree that everybody can do maths. And this brings me to my second point, which I want your opinion on, is that mathematics itself, the subject mathematics, is inherently a bully. It is intimidating because of all the numbers and the symbols and everything that goes with it. And what I normally teach my students is that the way you stand up against the bully is by asking questions. That is the secret to success in mathematics, is by learning how to ask a question. Because once you ask a question, somebody explains it to you, the light bulb goes on, and you say, oh, okay, now I understand. So suddenly you are pulling the teeth of the maths monster by just simply learning how to ask questions. And the point I'm trying to make that I would love for you to comment on is when we draw the parallel of mathematics towards real life, we can assume safely that most people in their adult lives don't do calculus and trigonometry. the abstract forms of it. So when we try to answer the question of why is mathematics then so important, my take on this, and this is what you can comment on, is it teaches you how to ask questions. It's the one subject that if you don't ask questions, you're not really ever going to go far with it. So to actually understand the reason for mathematics, number one, understand that you are not necessarily going to get 95% for mathematics. It's fine. And second, mathematics is the one subject ideally geared to teach you how to ask questions. Please feel free to comment and give me your thoughts on those two statements.
I actually agree with you. I'm gonna give you a context. I think this journey of my life have given me many examples of what happened and when something happened. So when I was a teacher as well, I taught math literacy. So I didn't just teach maths only. I taught math literacy, physical sciences, and you can call them. So now, during that teaching of this space, there were a group of learners who they believe that even math literacy they cannot do, let alone math. So math was something very big for them, so they couldn't even think of it. So during that processes, when I was teaching them, I taught them that, you know what, learn the maths and fail. It's okay. But the reason is you're not failing. You're not failing. You just don't know where you are passing the maths to. Because I do believe that you can learn the maths at school and you don't get those great grades. But the discipline that maths will teach you, as you are saying, it will teach you to ask questions, to communicate, to ask even when you get stranded, when you're not sure of the question, you ask your friend, and that is teaching you teamwork in the industry of work, right? So you start learning from mathematics to say, now I'm struggling, I need to accept that I cannot do this sum, I need to ask someone to help me to do the sum. So it's actually really true that mathematics, it forces you to do things that you feel like I'm not comfortable into doing, like ask other people questions, admitting that you cannot do things, or admitting that this is wrong, in all those kind of things. So many learners that I've taught, and now when I go home to Limpopo, they will actually be saying that, ma'am, you know what, I'm a manager at Jet. And I look at them and said, but you failed maths, you said you were failing maths. And they said, yes, but every skill you taught me then, it's helping me today. That learner does not have a certificate or an A in maths or whatsoever, but then the lesson they've learned there helped them to move forward. And they are now able to stand in the boardroom and be managers with that skill that they've learned. So I 100% agree with you that math is just by nature teaching you something that you just have to learn, even if you're not comfortable in learning it. And I think that's what makes most of us, when we reach a place, people will say, your confidence is high. They're not understanding confidence is not taught by anyone else but the math subject as at large. So you learn that confidence and you run with it. You feel like I can do everything, I can be everywhere. As you're saying, yes, some people are naturally born to do maths. That's fine. But even those who are not naturally born to do it, it teaches them a skill that can help them in future and in life to make their life decision going forward. So that's why I believe that maths can be done by anyone.
I've actually got a poster on my computer. I think I'm going to edit it into this part of the video. It says, if people think that mathematics is difficult, it's only because they don't understand how complicated life is.
100%
You know,
agree.
so okay, so we are again deviating all the way towards mathematics. So let's go back to the next question. I asked, was there a moment in your life that shaped how you see education today? And you said, over time, working closely with curriculum documents, classrooms, and learner performance data has shaped my perspective. One thing that became very clear is that good intentions in curriculum policy do not always translate into effective learning in classrooms. And I want to stop at that point, the good intentions in policy, curriculum policy, because if you look at the CAPS document, specifically for mathematics, there's a paragraph that underlines what you and I have just discussed about mathematics breeding critical thinkers, better members of society. It's actually baked into the CAPS document of mathematics. Yet, when we look at the results of the matrics every year, the grade 12s, and we look at, just generally speaking, the Tim study and all of these things, it seems like mathematics has lost its way somewhere along the way. You know,
Yes.
and I would assume that this is a point very close to your heart, is the fact that mathematics has become a love to hate subject. You know, they have to take it up to grade 9, and then they take maths literacy because they think it's easier and they don't understand the length of the word sums that they're going to be faced with. But
Yes.
it's just simply a love to hate subject, which it shouldn't be. It should actually be something that is embraced. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree. And in my context, I always say that how on earth that I can teach my child that, you know what, papen meat is the food that we eat at home. And after they are 13 years old or 14, 15 years old, they go out and they feel like something else is what they need to eat rather than what I've taught them. It's you know what, even today when we are doing the diets and all those kind of things where we move out of the food that we usually eat, but in reality I also still know that pap and flays is the food I need to eat because that's how I grew up eating. Even
Mm,
though I go eat a pizza, I go eat something else burger, I remember that my root comes with pap and meat. But now, how on earth did we teach a child from the younger age to count, to share, to do all these things until they are in grade 9? And now, when they're in grade 9, they decide to do something they don't know, they've never seen, they've never heard. They now hear it for the first time in grade 10, but they run into it. Somebody else is intimidating them to go to it, or someone else is promising that there's greener pasture on the other side rather than this other side. So something is broken there, because I also don't understand why are they leaving it in grade 10 while they've been learning it all this time. And they actually would tell you in grade 8, because I did taught grade 8 at some point, they'll tell you that, me, I don't worry about your maths, ma'am, I'm going to do a maths literacy in grade 10. And you ask, what is maths literacy? Do you even know what is that? How did you learn about it? And it's just the gospel that we are also preaching. And I'm going to say we, because I'm talking about the whole nation, the whole country, the parents, the stakeholders, everyone. When you see a child is struggling, you just say to you, I then go do math literacy. The teachers, they decide, everybody who's involved, they just make sure that these learners are indoctrinated enough to think that master trace is their good a get going space where they can just run to it and then move on, which is practically very wrong in my opinion, because it's not helping them. It's really not. If you look at how the university is treating math literacy and the maths learners, it's very sad, because they don't treat them the same. I can be a maths learner with 40%, and you're a math literacy learner with 100%. I promise you, they'll leave them and they'll take the 40%.
mm.
So why did you do this? And why did you have to get 100% into it when you're not really recognized? So it's very sad.
So what you're saying, if I can put words in your mouth, is that we need to fix this problem early on. Not when
Yes,
they choose it in grade 10, but we actually need to go back to grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, um,
yes,
grade 7 when the senior phase starts, and we need to
yes.
find the problem or the root of the problem there so that we can fix it. So that when they get to the end of grade 9, they actually have the necessary confidence to believe they can do this all the way up to grade 12.
100%. And I'm going to use myself as a case study, because I have been a case study as well. When I
Mm,
was in grade, now it's called grade 7, back then it was standard 5. When I was in grade 7, the teacher that uses to teach me math then, although people thought I was born to be a math, but I always tell people that something unlocked my math to this extent, to this date. I would never forget what unlocked it. So there's these cards, they were called Maths 24. So my teacher had this card called Maths 24, and we'd have to look at the card, and you look at the numbers, you use the operations, the numbers used once, and you add, subtract, divide, multiply until you get the answer to be 24. So that is actually what have tricked my maths and make sure that I understand maths beyond anything else. And I realize that this is the language that nobody can take away from me, and nobody can say I have made a spelling error, and nobody. So I learned that language from that grade, and I grasped it with my whole hands and say, this is the way. And yes, you are right, it needs to start very far. It cannot start in grade 9, it cannot start in high school. It has to start in a very early age, where a child is starting perhaps in grade 1, perhaps when they're still at home, when they're learning in preschool, When we send them to school, when they are counting, we help them count. Whatever that they do, they need to remember and believe that they can be able to do what they have to do, just right from the beginning, not up. And I'm seeing the same trend with my boy. He's 10 years old in grade 5. When he do long division method, I am telling you, you might think that somebody else have taught him how to do it, because I left him with one question, show him one, it doesn't move away. Now he can do it, and he usually teaches my brother who's in TVET. He just finished his chemical engineering now in TVET college, so he was teaching him how to do long division and say, Malume, I know how to do these things. But it's all about the belief, because I believe in it. It's easier for him to believe in, because he look at me and say, I have a mother who's a math specialist. But how about the child who's only looking at the teacher as a specialist, at a teacher as a role model, or as a tutor? From that tutor must give the child a hope, some sort of a hope, that you can be able to do this math and you can do it properly. And I think that is what, when we have to go back to our topic of today, which is talking about AI, this is what we need to train our AI to kind of mimic, and make sure that even if the child is struggling, it doesn't give up. It doesn't talk like the teacher would have said, so that the learner can have some sort of hope that I can still do this. And as this AI is explaining to me, at least I have someone who I'm asking. Like, if you chat with ChatGPT or any other AI now, and you say, you know what, I'm very frustrated today, you say, oh no, so sorry about your day. Tell me more. Like Gemini used to do this. Tell me more, and then it will act like a human being talking to you. So I think that we need those patterns in maths to try and trick the mindset of a child to say this is not as difficult as you think, but if you believe in it, you'll be able to produce the best of what you are. So that is actually what I believe in.
Okay, so let's maybe pivot the conversation towards AI, and see where that takes us. Um,
Yes.
the one thing that we have addressed so far is the importance of asking questions. All right, so let's just keep that as a central point in this conversation, that
Mm.
the key phrase that we need to teach the kids is not necessarily algebra or fractions or something. We need to teach them how to ask questions. So when we look at AI and we look at your standard large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, I haven't really used DeepSeek myself, but let's say DeepSeek, and a whole host of these large language models, that are available out there. There's an inherent problem in them, in the sense that they were trained to be, I call them people pleasers. They are literally rewarded through likes and proper weights if they produce the full answer. They don't take you on a runaround. They just say, there's the answer. And even if it's 3 pages long, they feel good about themselves because they have produced the answer that you asked for. And that has led to exploitation by the kids, because they say, here's my homework question, get the whole thing, just write it down or write the answer down and hand that in. And they've got no idea how it got to that answer, because they
Yes.
just got the full, complete explanation in one go. So what I have done in my company is we've created what we call an agent. So the agent sits between the user and the large language model. And that agent can be trained. So when you referred earlier to the teachers and the pedagogy, that is where that will live. The teacher input and the training and what it should and shouldn't do, and the pedagogy of how to handle the student, how to handle a child on an age appropriate level, how to handle a child that is, for instance, faster learner than another one. Your typical special needs education can all be done inside that agent. So when we say to a child in, for instance, grade 4, we want to teach you mathematics, but we have the AI. And we say to the child, we are going to give you the opportunity to ask questions. This is the important thing. You've got this platform to ask a question. And you and me can now be duplicated 1,000,000 times. You don't have to be stuck with the clock, the time that's ticking when you are sitting with the student, because you've got AI that duplicates you 1,000,000 times over. How will that solution, if you think about it holistically now, that solution of having a duplicate of a person that can explain the question in the correct pedagogy and the correct sequence, and actually stop a student and say, do you understand what I've just said? Wait. Did you understand what we've just done, or do you want to ask me more questions? I think you mentioned earlier the facility of generating more questions. So now you've got your question answered on long division. Let's see if we can do a couple more of long division. So you need that agency of saying, okay, do you understand what we've just done? Yes, I do. Okay, can I give you a couple more examples to do for me, a couple more practice questions, and just churn them out one by one until this child says, I think I've got this now. I think I've managed to get this right. How would you, as Thandi, approach a solution like that? Because it is available. It currently is available. What would you like to do with
Yes,
that?
I think this is more a better, it's more of a better AI solution that one can talk about, but I believe that it can actually be addressed in a more contextual way, where it is actually, I always call it personalized. So personalized meaning that if it's me, I'm in grade four, and you know that not all the grade fours will come the same way. So as a teacher now, as a tutor and as a teacher as well, that if a child come to you, you're not going to be able to, the five children are coming to you with the same question, but the way you're going to respond to them should be different, because all of them have their own way. Some are visual, some are the one that can read, some are listeners, and all those the situation that they are, some are slow, some are in the middle, and some are very high catching and can understand, or some are just those ones who say I understand, but then they don't really understand. So that's where we say that the AI need to be understanding and personalize it enough to say, catch Thandi does not really understand, even though she's putting thumbs up. Tandy's not understanding, even though she's. So you shouldn't just say because I saw thumbs up from Tandy, then that means then that this is understandable. Thumbs up does not really mean it's not, in the same. Someone are saying thumbs up because they're saying okay, but some are saying I understand. And is this real? Are they really understanding it? So what I would really want to see in a sort of an AI that is helping a learner more than a teacher itself. It's something, because now we are talking about a learner without a teacher. So we're saying a learner should be able to use this AI without a teacher being attached to the space. So then the AI should be able to say, okay, now this learner have come with this particular questions. And as I answer the questions, should I answer them all, or must I just answer one, show step by step, leave them, and then ask them to answer and send me the answers? Then I analyze, because that's how the teacher should have been doing it, right? Say, okay, the first one, let me show you, but the second one, try. When they fail, this is how I'm going to correct it and send it back. But now the way I am doing this to one learner, it's not the same to the other, because the other will come, and after I explain, they still don't get it. What must I do? I must find another way. Either if there's a video, pull a video and show. If there's an audio, then I say let's audio or whatsoever. So that is the reality. I know now we are still in the large model language, large language models of AIs, where we are not yet in the space where the AI can actually mimic a human and do as a human is doing. But some sort of like the way in which a learner can be contextualized and be understood, to say this learner, even though they do this, they are not understanding it. That's a sort of an AI that I would believe that it will help a learner. However, the current AIs that are out there, what I believe is they do still need a teacher to be there to assist the learner. So a learner alone is not yet in the space where they can be left and be comfortable in it. This AI will help them, especially in maths.
Okay, so the good news is that AI exists. I've got such an AI platform. It's called Over-the-Shoulder Tutor. The key
Yes,
phrase
I
to
remember you told
understand,
me. I did research. Yeah.
yes. So the key differentiating factor of the over-the-shoulder tutor and your large language models is that the OTS tutor is an agent. It sits between the large language model and the student. Okay, so this agent is trained and can be further trained. I mean, it's not perfect yet, but it can be trained
Yes.
to do exactly what you've just said. Contextualize every student, keep up with the pace of individual students, stop and ask, are you with me? Do you understand? Etc. Etc. We can train and refine training all the time on this agent to go to a student and say, okay, so this morning in class you did, for argument's sake, fractions. Let's see if you understand fractions. And if you don't, let me explain what I see you don't understand. So maybe the child
Mm.
doesn't understand the lowest common multiple. Maybe they don't understand the equivalent fractions
Mm. Mm.
of actually converting into the lowest common multiples. That's all part of the training. And this podcast has uncovered to a certain extent the reason why AI is not considered a priority in the world out there. I mean, they're talking about coding and they're talking about medicine and they're talking about law and all the places where AI is making a big impact. But I found that
Yes.
they seem to be running circles around education. It's like nobody has got
Mm.
the solution for education. So I believe I do. Thandi, I really believe with the over-the-shoulder tutor, as imperfect as it is still, it's only going to get better with time. So here's my proposal to you from this podcast. Let's, you and me, start with a project with the over-the-shoulder tutor where we actually go and find students and we run the OTS tutor with them for a week or two or three and see what impact we get from that. And then we come back onto this YouTube platform, but not as a continuation of the podcast, but as a brand new episode of giving feedback. What do we find? What type of feedback do the students give us? Is it helping them? We can maybe get in touch with the teachers, those students' teachers as well, and say, what did you experience? Are the kids more interactive, more proactive in class? Do they ask more questions? What are their test results like, etc., etc.? But what do you think of that? Did we actually make something practical out of this conversation?
No, I think it does help because it's very important that the audience and the users of over the shoulder, for example, or any other AI, experience the hands on and be able to give the proper feedback to say this is not what is there and this is what is here. Perhaps we are thinking for the AI, and then AI can do that. It might surprise us, and then when we get into it and we do what we have to do, it respond to what we are looking for, while we did not realize that, because we are looking at it in the different perspective. So I think it's a good
Hmm.
idea.
Okay, brilliant. So you did make a couple of very valid points in your response to my questions, and I just want to quickly touch on that. But I think then we will go out and see what we can do, practically speaking, with the over-the-shoulder tutor, with students that are real human students sitting in a classroom, battling with mathematics, and periodically we touch base here on this platform and we give feedback and we see where we can take that. How's that?
All right. I
Okay.
think that's
So,
that's doable. That's something that we can do, and then we check, because as both of us, we want this to be the best for maths and make sure that maths is done properly. As a teacher myself, I do believe that maths is a priority for everyone, and I do believe that teachers should get into the point where they also understand the priority and the agency of how they should treat maths, even if they're using any other tool, and what to use and how to use it, to make sure that their pedagogy and the skills that they have to submit and help to the learners with, it's not wasted.
you do realize that ultimately mathematics did hijack this conversation then. We tried to stop it, but mathematics just took over. I tried
Yes,
to not let
but
it
I'm
happen, but it
happy
did.
because the AI, the best way for us to, I think the best way for us to test that this AI is what it can help education at large, is if we can win the likes of the subjects that we believe it's a challenge into
Mm,
the
mm,
world. But if it's possible, then we can. But also, one thing that I've realized is the unpacking of the AI in realistically, when you look at it and you look at the curriculum, suddenly or currently, the teachers and everyone in the field, as most, not all of them, are struggling to unpack the curriculum properly and make sure that it caters for what it's meant to do, right?
Mm,
So now there's an AI which is not in the curriculum, and they need now to integrate it and use it as well. So the point will be now, how do we then get that? Because even if we want to win the student and learners and make sure that they do it properly, but then there's still a gap of the curriculum alignment with, the reality of what the curriculum should do and what it was meant to do, or what it
mm,
is really doing in the current situation of teaching and learning. Now we are bringing in AI and say, run with AI with your gaps in the curriculum and the little knowledge or the lack of pedagogy whatsoever. Let's run with AI now. So it's a really challenge that it's coming in, but it needs to be faced, because even if we don't talk about it or we don't give it to the student, they will find it. Learners will find AI, and learners will use it in a wrong way, because they would not know which one is the correct one and which one to use and when to use it. So there's predicament that we have to just look into and make sure that we do, as educationalists, we do justice to the knowledge that we are working with, and make sure that we do it for the learners, since we have vouched for them whenever we became teachers, that these learners should get a better than what we did get at the time. And I mean, they're in the good spot, in the good space where AI is here, but they just need to be directed properly to know how to use it, when to use it, and when not to use it.
yeah, and I think I want to add something to this whole discussion that you've initiated there, is that the teacher is not being replaced. Not with us and not with AI in general. A great teacher will be better than AI because of the empathy, the human factor, the ability to judge a student's mood for the day,
Mm.
just essentially the human factor. I'm actually having a podcast scheduled, I think, for about next week or the week after, with a guy that wrote an article online that I saw, and I immediately contacted him and I said, you know what, I would love for you to be on my podcast because of that one sentence, which says, to really benefit from AI, we actually need to become more human. That was so powerful. We need to become
Yes.
more human to really benefit from AI, not become more machine like, more human. We need to find that human touch. I was watching a video the other night of a guy who actually articulated it very well. He said, there are certain things that AI cannot do for you. And I
Mm-mm.
said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, what will that be? And I'm thinking, what? And then he said, um, an AI robot, let's say there's an AI robot eventually, that can do all the work that you can do, and it can clean the dishes and wash the car and mow the lawn and everything. It can do everything better than you. The one thing that AI robot cannot do is go to a party on your behalf. You know? How true is that? It still cannot
That's
go and
very true.
experience the humanness as an AI robot. And that's what we need to look for when we speak to teachers. We need to say to teachers, we are not looking at ways to replace you. We are not looking
It's
at ways to push
supporting.
you
It's a
out.
support.
Yes, you tell us what you want in the pedagogy. We will put it into the training data. We'll make sure that the AI adheres to your instructions. But you are still the first contact with the learner. You are still the person that they see in the morning when they walk in class and you explain something in the class. We are just picking up from there and strengthen you using AI because of the fact that it can be duplicated. It can suddenly, where you as a teacher can only spend like 1 minute per child in a 30-minute period, theoretically, AI
Mm.
can spend hours with all 30 children at the same time, in the same afternoon, because it is a machine. It is not limited to
Mm-mm.
a contact session like you as a human would be. So where do we find that synergy between the human teacher, who is the primary source of knowledge, but more than that. The teacher is way more than just a transferer of knowledge. There is empathy involved, there is
Mm.
mentorship involved, there's so much
Mm.
involved from the human teacher. But somewhere
Very true.
that student, that learner needs to now cement this knowledge. You need to
Mm.
master that knowledge. And that is what this podcast really tries to find, is that
Mm.
point where the AI becomes a learning tool, not just
Mm.
an answer tool. So I
Yes.
think I think you and I can take this conversation offline after this podcast, and then design something and come up with this strategy where we can actually go and find a couple of learners that we can test this on, and then come back every so often and give report back and say, what did we find, how do the students interact. I don't know if we can actually have the students on camera. I think that might be a stretch a bit, but we can ask them to write
Yeah,
something
we might need the Poppy Act, the parents' consent form, and
yeah.
all that. Yeah,
But I mean, even if we
but
can't get them on camera, we can still ask them to just tell us in words, or voice notes or something.
to write, or to send a voice note, whatsoever they
Yeah.
can do. Yeah,
So okay,
but
Thandi,
you're very right. In my context, just to add on what you said, is that, you see, and this is what I always say: if you can get a teacher to understand what you meant and what support you are giving, then you have got everything right. Because the challenge here is not only the learners themselves or the parents, it's the teacher trainer or the teacher professional development part of it. So yes, AI is here, but as a teacher, what do I do with AI to ensure that I don't just use it, haphazardly, and I just don't take and run. I'm using it with conscious and all this human nature. You said it, human natures and all those kind of things, that I have to still account to my ethical part of being a teacher. I still use it. So that is what they need to be, in line with the teacher, to understand how. Because when they come and say, okay, now you can actually go to Over the Shoulder and get this app and use it, they need to have understood what can Over the Shoulder, a tutor, do, and what it can't do. And
hmm,
that is the context of where the teacher now need to be trained enough to understand that this AI still need you to go to your learner and say, when you need, like, for example, I'll give with Siavula, which is what is used nationally. In Siavula, when I was a teacher, we'd be told learners can go just practice questions and answers. Siavula was clearly just for question and answers. And when we tell our learners to go to it, we said it with confidence: go practice many questions in there, because the purpose and the goals of what it has to do and what it was meant for, it was clear to the teacher. So I
hmm,
think that is the only thing that we need to ground and make sure that when that is grasped properly, I tell you, all the teachers will understand what they need to do, and they will also want to understand what is the difference between this one and others,
hmm.
what makes this one much better than the other one that is literally free online, right? I don't have to subscribe, it's free. I can just download it. And what is the difference? Because that's where they need to be and understand the differences, so that they can be able to support and understand that it's coming to support them, not to replace them. Because that's another challenge, that people think that their jobs are at stake due to AI. I'm not sure about that, and I don't know much about it, because maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But why suffer twice? At the moment, we don't know. It's a support tool which we can all use to support whatever job we have to do, or whatever teacher job it has to happen. Like lesson plans, they can go and get it in some instances. It's a support tool. It doesn't mean that you take and go teach. You need to align with your learners and understand what they need, how you want to teach them, and refine that lesson plan to suit you. But AI would have given you a template.
Yeah. I think because this is going to be a video on YouTube, and teachers might be looking at this video in the future, I want to extend, with your permission, I want to extend an invitation to any teacher who wants to come on board as a guest in a follow-up podcast conversation, to come and talk to us about your fears, your expectations, your challenges, your requirements, anything that you think is important in the pedagogy for us, Thandi and myself, to take forward back to the kids. That is really the main idea of this podcast, is to find people's opinions on what can AI do, what should AI do really in education, and what should it
Mm,
not do. Because you touched on
mm,
it, that you can find the free platforms, they are there, but what happens there is you get the full answer. You're not learning anything. You're learning how to cheat, maybe. You're learning how to take the shortcut, maybe, but you're not learning the skills of the subject. You're not learning really how to ask questions, because everything is given to you in one go. And that is where the starting point of the over-the-shoulder tutor is to not give all the answers right away, but to actually guide through a learning process. That is the pedagogy that is already built into that. And like I said before, it's not perfect. It can be improved. For sure, it can be improved. And that's why we need feedback. So, any teacher
we
out
need
there,
feedback and other people that are in the field to give you the reality of it, because they might tell you that maybe we are just talking whatever we are saying, it's not real, or
yeah,
they have AI because perhaps others have it in their schools, we don't know. So that's the thing that we might have to get, and then be able to guide them in the proper direction. I
okay.
agree.
So, in closing, Thandi, there are three or four more questions that I gave you that you answered. So, I'm just going to give you the question again. I'm not going to go through the answer, because in the context of this conversation, you may want to change what you said originally, or maybe you want to stick with your original answer, whichever. So, I'm going to give you just a question, the various questions still outstanding, and then you can comment on that. And then I think we can close this podcast. And next time you and I talk, we will then have some feedback on a real project with real students, with real problems and real challenges, and we give feedback on what we found.
All right.
Okay. So the first question: what excites you and what concerns you about AI in education?
Okay, I think what excites me is when you put something AI, it has tend to be Google. You remember when Google started, you put everything, Google will always have an answer, even if it's not
Mm,
true. It can source it and then give it to you. So AI has started to be in the fact that it can give you all the answers of what you are looking for. And now what scares me is when you read through those and you see that is wrong, and you go back and you say, but this is wrong. And it says, yeah, you are actually right. And I'm like, okay, why
hallucinating.
did you say it was right initially? So those are the things that I'm very
Yeah.
scared that, imagine if you did not look into what advice it is that it gives you, which it says is correct, and now you go back and it says, hey, I gave you what I found, but
Mm,
you gave me the wrong things and you did not read. So the scary part will be when you're not conscious that AI is there, and it's not perfect as you're
yes.
saying it, and you just take whatever it gives you, you run with it, and you start owning it. We're going to have many plagiarism, many issues of like incorrect knowledge. In maths, for example, it cannot draw a graph for you, or it
Mm.
cannot do whatever it is that you're looking for. It can actually give you wrong information, and if you're not conscious enough to see that it's to read it through. And I'm very sure this is not only for maths, it's general in education.
I'll give you a very
Yeah, it
practical
can be
example that I found last year when I was working with a group of grade 12s, preparing them
yes.
for the final exam, and they had a question about the hyperbola, a graph. And the one of the questions was, what is the equation of the axis of symmetry of the hyperbola? Now, remember, the hyperbola in grade 12 starts moving all over the axis diagram, so it's not symmetrical around the origin
Yes,
anymore.
it has
And
the
this
shifts.
and the OTS tutor, literally my OTS tutor, made the mistake over and over and over again, because it kept giving me the equations of the asymptotes, whereas the question was the equation of the axis of symmetry.
Symmetry.
And I caught it out. I literally caught my own AI tutor out for hallucinating, but confidently proclaiming that is the answer. Don't argue with me. That is the answer. Until I actually asked, okay, so what is the equation of the asymptote then? Oh. Then suddenly, you're right, you're right. Then I only managed
So that's
to
so
catch it.
that's the reality of that's my scary part of it, because
Yes,
imagine you are a teacher, you are in front of learners, and then you have taken that equation of the asymptote, and you make it an equation of the symmetry, and you move with it. When you're in front of the learners and now they have learned, now you have literally created the misconception that was not necessarily to be created,
yes,
because they will
yeah.
learn that and they go with it. Nobody will change them, and
So
that's what
the,
they're going with an ink. So they'll end up thinking that, okay, asymptote and axis of symmetry is actually the same.
yeah. So that is why the OTS tutor comes pre-packaged with a concept known as the human tutor fallback. You're not giving the AI full control of the curriculum or the pedagogy. You're telling it you need to go and do X, Y, and Z, but there is a human tutor fallback function where the student can
Yes.
say, I'm not sure if this is right. That's how I actually caught it last year. Because one of my students came to me and said, this isn't right. And then I looked at the conversation and I said, no, you're quite right. This agent is hallucinating. And then we started looking into how can we fix it. And that was one of those training moments, where the AI had to be trained to be better. And that's why the teachers are so important, and the
Yes.
idea of asking questions is good. It's not wrong.
Yes.
You're not you should ask questions. You should actually question everything because
No, I
then you
agree
learn.
100%. Mm.
Okay, so the next question was, if you could design AI for education from scratch, what is one principle it must absolutely respect in your ideal world? Must I
That
tell you
sounds
what you
like a
said,
hard
or do
one.
you want to? I can tell you what you said, or you can answer it if you
Please,
like.
please tell me.
You said it must support teachers rather than replace them. Education is a human process. That's the one
Yes.
principle that you were very adamant about, and I'm assuming
Yes, which
after
I
this
think
discussion you
I
still
have
are.
been repeating it. I think I've been repeating it throughout the
Yeah.
conversation, that we need to be very, very vocal and clear about the fact that AI would never, at this point, I'm not sure in future, but at this point in time, AI would not replace the teacher, and teachers
Yeah.
need to know that, so that they are comfortable enough to, to use it. Because if I know that you are coming to support me, I will work with you. But if I feel like you are threatening my job, I might not even talk to you. I would leave you
Mhm.
out. So that is the
Yeah.
predicament that we are at now with all the teachers and the AI. So I do believe that that is the principle that I have, that whatever happened, the human person is still needed to accommodate everyone, because I don't really believe that AI can come to the fact that it can completely bypass a human.
Yeah. Now, I totally agree with you. I think we've made that point loud and clear that AI in education needs the teachers. There's no way we're looking at bypassing the teachers or replacing the teachers. This is supporting them, augmenting them, enhancing them, duplicating them, but not replacing them at all.
Yes.
All right, so the last question, is there something you care deeply about in this space that you feel isn't being talked about enough? Now, again, I can
Did I
tell you
answer
what you
that?
wrote, but you want to answer that first?
Please let me know what I wrote.
Okay, so remember this invitation that I extended to you originally was for AI in education. Okay,
Yes.
and we've had this whole series of questions and discussions about AI in education. So
Mm.
when I read your answer to this, I thought brilliant. Is there something you care deeply about in this space that you feel isn't being talked about enough? And you said, I think we do not talk enough about the quality of mathematical understanding. Like I said, mathematics just takes over. I mean, we cannot help it. It just hijacks everything.
And I
So,
think at this context I can add to that to say, and mathematical understanding in terms of, or in respect to AI, does really AI understand the maths behind the context? Because I do feel that it has all the languages that it need to learn, like a real English kind of, UK, South African, whatsoever. It can be directed to that particular language and it can work very well. But
yes.
does it understand the maths itself, the language of maths, that it need to have and entailed to be able
It
to give us what we are looking for. Because I think that is one thing that I feel like, even when the experts or those who are saying they're experts in AI are talking on YouTube and all those kind of places that I listen to, I kind of always feel like, but what is it that we need to do to ensure that these platforms that are created are literally having the proper language of each and every subject if it has to be, and make sure that when it responds, it does not mix match whatever it says in a maths context. It stays
mm,
in that context. It doesn't, it doesn't overlap. And I think that this is why it will hallucinate, because if you go back to the way we were taught, some of us will think like similar and congruent. I think it took me a very long time to understand that there's a really difference between similarity and congruency.
mm,
And that
mm,
is what AI is in that space, similarly to the teachers that didn't understand, or the concept that we didn't understand, that is actually not the same, as different, and it representing different ideas. And if you look at the maths now, which I'll go to, which you don't want me to go to, if you look at it, the grade 12 learners are still struggling, or even the teachers, to teach the theorems that has to do with similarities, proportionalities, and
mm,
all that. Why? Because the language of congruency and the language of similarity was lost somewhere in the road of learning. And that is what
yeah,
I'm saying when I talk about AI. Should really understand the language of maths that need to be known, so that it doesn't hallucinate and give us something like symmetry and asymptote is the same,
yes, yes.
more like the space. Yeah.
Okay, Thandi, thank you very much for your presence on this podcast today, and thank you for the fact that we can actually create something more from the podcast, which should then benefit some real learners. And we will be back. We'll come back and we'll talk about what the learners have found and what we could do for them as an ongoing project.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Gary. I'm also honored and looking forward to learn more.
Perfect. You have a good evening further.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, bye.